I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to do the line. You know the line, or if you don't, I guess we'll talk about it. Network. This is the latest in the run of 70s and 80s movies I have been commissioned to take a look at this year. And this one I was both excited and nervous for. Excited because I'd heard good things about it for a very long time. Nervous because it's the same screenwriter who wrote The Hospital, which I reviewed a couple months back. And The Hospital was trash. It was really, really bad. Apparently, quite praised at the time. Won an Oscar for that script. So there's your confirmation the Oscars have always been garbage. But this makes a lot of sense that it was written by the same guy. It kind of fits a similar format. There's a similar overall approach and mentality. But it works here very much in the way that it didn't work in The Hospital. And I feel totally fine saying that because honestly, like I said, I'd heard of this. I'd seen clips of this. I knew about this. I've known about this movie for decades, even though I never got around to watching it. I'd never heard of The Hospital before. So it seems like the flow of time has acknowledged this was worth keeping around. The Hospital was not. But this has a sort of similar structure, focusing on a singular business entity, the people within it, the messed up aspects that are already there about it, the people who are messing it up more, the people being taken advantage of, people who are breaking under the strain of this system. So it is very much covering a lot of the same topics, but it's just a better setting for all of that, to be honest. A news broadcast, a newsroom, well, I mean, the greater network in general, but kind of focusing initially at least on a newsman who clearly needs professional help and isn't getting it. Like it's not technically the first scene, but when you more or less open a film with a news anchor signing off his broadcast going, tune in a week and watch me take myself out right here live on television in front of all of you. That's a heck of a hook to kick things off with. So it's just stronger across the board, and it's got really, really good performances. I understand why there were a lot of Oscars that were taken by the performers in this. It's really well put together, and while it does have, I would say it's aged pretty well on the whole. Not 100%. Ultimately, this does have a get these kids off my lawn energy to it. But that being said, it is directing its anger at very valid targets. And even like when it sort of feels... there are times where I think there's a certain, at least by today's standards, a certain conservative sensibility. This notion of the, things used to be good and now they're garbage, that sort of mythology that that more conservative leaning folks tend to tell themselves and each other. While it does have that, again, it is still shaking its fist at totally valid targets. The conglomeration of media and of businesses, the manipulation of movements, of people, like just taking someone who is a desperate, angry, troubled, disturbed man and just going, we get great ratings, put him back on the air. So it's pretty well balanced. And so for comparison, I find myself comparing this to The Hospital a lot. One of the things I dinged The Hospital for was its attempt to sort of do this takedown of activists and whatnot. But it felt completely off base in that to me. And I had a little bit of a hard time figuring out why, fully at least. I knew what some of the issues were, but I think I feel like, or at least I can identify why it works here where it doesn't there. Because that was a local group trying to stop a local gentrification and neighborhood demolishment. If you're trying to take on activists, ones that are actually focused local, really feels like you are going after the wrong targets. When you're going to take on activists and your focus are the ones who are going out of their way to get themselves on TV, that is not only more valid, but also is not necessarily an automatic tearing down of anyone with a with a particularly strong political view, anyone who is a revolutionary, it's taking down the people who have allowed themselves, either voluntarily or unintentionally, to be subsumed by the same entertainment news mess that is screwing everybody else up. And that to me is totally valid. And also, like, especially what this thing really makes the point probably better than it makes any other point, and it makes a decent number of them. But probably the best point that it makes is the point that there is no critique of the system, that the system cannot co-opt for its own purposes, usually successfully. And this movie is that. It is absolutely making that point, and it's an accurate point, and it's a valid one. So we watch as initially it starts with one man, this one news anchor, cracking. And like he clearly, like we get a narration at the start that is making it clear, like his personal life has fallen apart too. This isn't just he's fed up with the way that news things have been going. That's clearly part of it, and that's what he chooses to lash out at least initially. But like there's a lot of stuff going wrong with this guy's life. And when he snaps on air, the ratings go up. And you've got the people who are really reticent about the fact, like, I don't care if the ratings went up. That was a horrible thing that just happened that we just caught on TV. We're not going to put him back on the air on purpose. And then there are people who went, but the ratings went up. So yeah, we are. And just sort of snowballing from there. And I think it's pretty well constructed and is built pretty well. I will say I do. While I don't think there's anything wrong with the overall characterization, certainly the performance is good, it does give me slight pause that the only noted female character in the entire movie is a cold, heartless, business-focused bitch who just destroys everything for the sake of her career and the betterment of the business, as she destroys people and her own life for that matter. I don't love that. That having been said, I think the film, at least some folks involved in the film, kind of realize this isn't the best look, because they actually kind of have her attribute a lot of her worst aspects to being too masculine, which I'm not going to say that that's accurate, really, but it does feel like an acknowledgement from the film that, like, yeah, we know it's not great that this is really the only female character for all intents and purposes. The only one who really matters, at least. So yeah, that gave me a little discomfort, but again, I do think that what that character was there to do and be, was, it helped the story. Faye Dunaway did a good job with it. Ned Beatty, okay, like I'm watching the movie and it's about a 2-hour movie, and I'm almost 3/4 the way through it, and I knew Ned Beatty was in this, and I knew he got an Oscar for this. I'm like, he hasn't even shown up yet. What is the deal with that? And then he shows up. The man has one scene, and he is a force of nature. And the scene ends, and I was like, okay, yeah. Yeah, nope. Valid Oscar. Yeah. He's only got one scene, but he's incredible. And the newscaster who breaks, I can't remember the actor's name. He also won an Oscar posthumously, unfortunately. But he's also really good, and I think it helps that the movie does make clear that this man is disturbed. Like, we get a scene of him lying on his back in his bed talking to literally nobody. And not like in a talk to yourself, pump yourself up way, but like he's having a conversation and there is no other person there. And when you see the way that he gets swayed in a new direction by Ned Beatty, and I think it helps that he is legitimately depicted as being some degree of unsettled and disturbed, because I think what keeps this from being as cynical as something like The Hospital is you get a character like him, and he is very angry. Some of it's justified, some of it's a little more questionable, but it's not really about whether he's right or whether he's wrong. It's about the fact that this is a man that needs help, and the network just wants to exploit him. Even as he slags off the network, they just want to exploit him. They think they can, and they will. And making it that instead of, and like, not that it's an invalid story to have, somebody with seemingly righteous anger being manipulated into voluntarily, basically, selling themselves and their ideals out. That's certainly a valid story to tell. And I've liked things that have told that story in the past. But I think in this case, given that they're really, the film is short on likable characters. And while I'm not going to say that him being clearly some degree of mentally unwell makes him likable, it does make him sympathetic. And the movie kind of needed that. Because if this was a case of he just sold out his values and the angry man thing became an act that he did as a bit, I think the whole thing could have felt too cynical for its own good. And it doesn't. It's a small touch that helps. Again, a lot of what this is doing thematically and even execution-wise is very similar to the Hospital, but it feels better thought out. It feels sharper. It feels better integrated. It feels like it has a better understanding of its own themes. Like the Hospital felt like a first draft. This feels like a real proper finalized product. And it's got a real astounding cast, and it holds up shockingly well. I mean, not across the board, but a lot of its bigger points, Ned Beatty's whole thing about how there are not countries anymore, there are corporations. There is AT&T and there is Exxon, and like these are the only things that matter. Like, boy, I wish that didn't still make me go, oh yeah, kinda, yeah. So, but it also, I think it helps that even as it portrays a whole bunch of people with very extreme, feels like the wrong word, but very kind of very like they're very certain about what it is they say. The movie itself never really depicts anybody as being completely right. It does kind of lean in certain directions about like who's on to something, but nobody is depicted as like the right one or the good one or the one who actually is trying to do things to better, the world or the country or even the network. It's just a bunch of people, some with some real strong convictions, some with some real weak ones who but everybody gets played. Everybody's getting played by somebody, and everybody's playing somebody else. Well, almost everybody's playing somebody else. And it feels biting. I can only imagine what it felt like then. Still feels pretty biting now. So, Network, pretty good. So much better than The Hospital. It's not even close. Have you seen this? What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills and enables me to do this as my living, even if you can't help me out that way. Like, share, subscribe. Those all help me out. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can come on back next time you need a break. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Goddess Elida, Zubin Lopfula, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Oliver B., Melissa Pedersen, Movie Turtle, Melinda Walters, Auntie Kate 808, Andre, Becky Sparks, Claire Wright, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Quite Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Toku Bluhuvian, Adam RDL Taylor, Pal Barabajagal, Mary Mello, Mira G, Sir Didymus is my favorite. I've never screwed that one up before. Well, if you want to hear me mess up your name, check out the rewards on the Patreon. I'm going to blame you.